battery. Oh, there we go. Let's try. It's on, definitely on now. All right. Sorry about that, all you online. Anyway. So today we hear about Jesus, right? And in the gospel, I mean, that's the point of the gospel, is we hear about Jesus, and we hear about Jesus having to, after walking around with them for almost 3 years, think about this. After walking around with them for almost 3 years, sending them out, bringing them back several times, right? So they can kind of do the stuff that he's been teaching them. He finds out, he notices and he knows, he's aware that they're arguing about something. Now, we have to overhear those conversations because sometimes as parents or teachers or Sunday school teachers or youth group leaders or whatever, we might hear things like that. Or as parts of groups and organizations, we might hear things like that, right? These kind of conversations. Jesus, is blessed with divine foreknowledge, so he knows what they're talking about. But anyway, and he has just come with Peter. He has just been with Peter in Mark's gospel. He's just been with Peter, James, and John just prior to this, up on the Mount of Transfiguration, where they saw him meet with Moses, Elijah, and Moses, Elijah, and who else did he meet with? What was Moses, Elijah, and Jesus? The three of them. There we go. He's talking with Moses and Elijah. So they were the three. So they're up there. And so the transfiguration is what precedes this in Mark's gospel. So only Peter, James, and John know that. And then they come down with him from the mountain and back into the routine stuff of disciples arguing. And what are they arguing about? You just heard it. What were the disciples arguing about? Who is the greatest? I'm better than you, right? Have you ever heard anybody argue about who is the greatest? Maybe once or twice. Maybe you've taken part in that yourself, why I'm better than you, why I'm more suited to do this, right? So now think about this now. They've been learning from Jesus for almost 3 years. They've been right at his feet. They've been hearing all this over and over again. They've been seeing the things that he does. They've been helping him. They've been sent off on their own and doing things, as I mentioned before. And yet here they are arguing about who is the greatest among them. Who's going to be first, right? Well, I healed 3 people. Yeah, but I drove out 7 demons. Yeah, but I preached to a crowd of 5,000. So it's just, they're missing the point. And Jesus knows this. But like a good parent, and maybe if you've been a parent, if you're a parent, then you've probably done this, right? You ask questions that you know the answer to. Anyone ever done that? Ask questions you know the answer to? Yeah. That's what Jesus does. He says, what were you discussing on the way? What were you talking about on the way? And you can imagine the group of disciples getting very quiet. Because they know what they're talking about. And they know that it's probably not consistent with the things Jesus has been teaching them. So they get quiet. And so Jesus has to talk for them. He says, he tells them that what it means to be great in his kingdom, right? By taking a child. Now, children are special things in our world. Children in the first century are pretty disposable. Okay, well, half of them died by illness. It was not uncommon for them to be put to work in the fields or someplace and to die from, some accident or something. So, whole different value on children in the first century. So Jesus takes this child and says that, well, let's read him. right? He says, whoever welcomes a child, right? Whoever receives such a child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. So he says, receiving a child who essentially in the first century is disposable, worthless, lowest level of the lowest level in the social hierarchy. Receiving a child is like receiving Jesus. And whoever receives Jesus, he reminds them, receives the one who sent me. So it's like an emissary. He says that humble act of receiving a child, of lowering yourself to a child and a child's needs, is like receiving God. Completely upending the social hierarchy of things in the first century, where you were to receive and to acknowledge those who were better than you, more powerful than you, so that you could have their favor. Tosses it aside. Then he teaches this because he knows what they were talking about. They were talking about who was the greatest. So I want you to think for a minute. Just pause and think for a minute about what you've been talking about this week along the way. What's been important and significant to you and has occupied your conversations this week? And now imagine what Jesus would say to you. What were you talking about along the way this week? I thought about that and I was kind of taken aback because I talked about all kinds of things this week, but very rarely about anything that has longer term significance. Now, there are things we need to talk about day by day just to negotiate our place in this world. But then there's this question of, have there been times where either in my internal conversations, which there were, or some of my external conversations, where what was important to me was making myself look good, feeling good about myself, instead of recognizing the person in front of me and discerning what God would have me do to show love to them. That was not necessarily my first thought every moment of this past week. Not, I'm human, and not that it's going to be. And I'm not trying to be a downer this morning. Here's Jesus calling the people who've been following him, and all of us have been following Jesus for a little while. We don't have Jesus in our midst in the same physical sense as the disciples did. All right? But he is still with us. And he still leads us. And he still listens to us. And he still guides us. Not in any coercive way, but in that gentle way that is like the look. And okay, I need to go a different direction. You just know in your heart. It's that kind of look that goes from here to here, and you feel it. That's how he walks with us. And that's how he guides us. And he doesn't condemn us. There is no condemnation in Christ. But he keeps drawing us to walk a little closer to him. And whether it's 3 years in his immediate physical presence as another human being, or whether it's 90 years in his spiritual presence with us, his real presence with us in Holy Communion. Right? It doesn't matter. It's something that in this world we're going to struggle with. And we gather to encourage each other in walking with him. It's why we begin our worship with confession and forgiveness. It's that thing that makes us really weird compared to the rest of the world, because nobody thinks about sin and nobody thinks about, admitting your fault. Except for the two people I met this week who were both members of AA. They've been in AA, one of them been in AA for 40 years, one had been in AA for, 32 years. And they get this whole making amends thing. It's kind of natural to them. They don't consider them, neither of them name themselves as Christians, but they get this basic step of needing to put things right, turning in the wrong direction, turning back, putting things right.